If I hadn't opened that trash bag, I never would have discovered the truth. My baby shower wasn't just ruined, it was sabotaged. When people talk about Thanksgiving, they talk about warmth, about families rubbing elbows over two small tables, about the smell of cinnamon drifting through a house that feels like it's been holding its breath all year. But I learned a long time ago that warmth can be staged. You can light candles, season the turkey, dim the lights, and still sit at a table colder than ice. My name is Ashley. And if you had asked me a year ago to describe my family, I would have said we were fine. That's how I always described things, fine. Okay, not a big deal. I could have been drowning, and I still would have said I was fine. It's what you learn to say when you grow up as the shadow beside a spotlight. When you're the daughter who gets accidental glances instead of deliberate attention. When your sister, Vanessa, sweeps through the room like it was built for her and you're just borrowing the air. I used to think I didn't need big displays of affection. That I didn't need people to show up. I told myself it didn't matter. You get good at pretending when you've gone your whole life unchosen. But it turns out there's a difference between being overlooked and being erased, and someone had been erasing me for a very, very long time. I didn't know that yet. That truth hadn't cracked open. Not until Thanksgiving. Not until my mother leaned across the table, her voice louder than the silverware clinking, and asked, "Why didn't you come to your sister's baby shower?" But I'm getting ahead of myself. 6 months into my pregnancy, I thought I was prepared for everything except the loneliness that comes with waiting for people who don't show up. My apartment in Denver was small, but it felt like mine. Between freelance design jobs and prenatal vitamins, I built a little world of soft blankets, warm light, and quiet Sundays. I was planning my own baby shower because no one else had offered, but I wasn't bitter. Not then. I just wanted something gentle. Something that didn't feel like an afterthought. I designed the invitations myself, cream cardstock. Embossed lettering, little gold flecks dusting the edges. Each one tied with a blush ribbon. I made the envelopes by hand too because details made me feel like I had control over something. Anything. I triple-checked each family address, then brought them to the shipping center. The clerk scanned them with that bored efficiency of people who handle thousands of packages a week. "You're all set," he said, sliding the stack out of sight. I went home smiling. I let myself imagine my mother opening her invitation and showing it off to her friends, Vanessa squealing dramatically, my dad rubbing the back of his neck in that shy, awkward, happy way he gets. I let myself imagine belonging. That was my mistake. The morning of my shower, sunlight filtered across my living room like a promise, soft, bright, impossibly hopeful. I hung string lights, arranged cupcakes on white platters, moved the sofa to open the space. I kept telling myself not to check the time, not to check the hallway, not to panic. Jenna arrived early, bless her, carrying a bag of pastries she baked herself. "Look at you," she said, smiling gently. "Your place feels like a Pinterest board." I shrugged it off, even though the compliment meant more than she knew. I wanted today to be good. I wanted it to be the one moment where my family didn't forget me, but noon came. Then 12:30, then 1. My phone was quiet, as still as the chairs I'd set out. "They're probably on the way," Jenna murmured, trying to sound convincing for my sake. 2 hours passed. Friends came, hugged me, handed me gifts, offered sympathetic glances I pretended not to notice. I told myself to stay present, stay grateful, stay polite, and I was. But every time that elevator dinged, I felt my chest lock up like it was bracing for impact. To this day, I remember the exact second the hope died. The hallway stayed empty, and the cupcakes didn't look cute anymore. They looked like a joke. No one from my family came. No text. No call, nothing. After the last guest left, Jenna lingered in the doorway. "I'm so sorry." "It's fine," I said automatically, but it wasn't fine. It was familiar, and familiarity hurt worse than surprise. When she left, I sat alone on my couch, hands cradling my stomach, trying to breathe in a way that wouldn't frighten the tiny heartbeat inside me. My phone buzzed. Vanessa. Next time. Plan earlier. Sis. 8 words. No apology, no explanation. Just that little twist she was so good at. Something about it felt too sharp, too rehearsed, too wrong. I opened the tracking page for the invitations. The same word appeared on every line. Delivered. That couldn't be right. I hadn't received a single acknowledgement. Not one. I clicked the first tracking number. A new detail blinked onto the screen. Signed for signed. My pulse slowed. My breathing hitched. Signed by who? I tapped the saved receipts. One by one, the pages loaded, a signature, then another. Then another. My chest tightened so hard I pressed a hand against it, as if I could physically hold myself together. I knew that handwriting. I grew up seeing it on little sticky notes claiming things around the house: Vanessa's perfume, Vanessa's jacket, Vanessa's leftovers. Her handwriting, her exact flourish. 12 times. She hadn't just intercepted one invitation. She stole every single one. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even sit down. I grabbed my keys and walked straight out of my apartment into the freezing Denver evening. I found myself in a late-night cafe down the street, sliding into a cracked vinyl booth, hands trembling as I opened each PDF file again. 12 signatures, 12 thefts, 12 little erasures of my existence. And I realized something painful. With sudden clarity, this wasn't the first time she'd done it. This was just the first time I caught her. I thought of the birthday card my mother claimed she never got. The Christmas photo that supposedly got lost in the mail. The baby registry no one ever clicked. Vanessa had been intercepting pieces of me for years. And I had let her. I printed everything at home, every page, every log, every signature, and placed them neatly into a plain folder. I didn't know what I was going to do yet, but I knew I couldn't let this sit heavy in my chest the way everything else had. Sometimes silence protects, but sometimes it poisons. Thanksgiving came a week later. My parents' house was glowing when I pulled up, warm lights spilling across the yard. Laughter floating through the windows, the familiar chaos of relatives crammed into a space one size too small. It was also painfully normal. I walked inside, the folder tucked under my arm. Helen saw me first. "Ashley," she exclaimed, squeezing my arm like she hadn't ignored me for days. "Sweetheart, you look tired. Have you been resting?" Vanessa sat across the room, all radiant and smug, one hand on her swollen belly like she was posing for a magazine cover. She smiled at me, slow and satisfied. I didn't smile back. We sat. Dinner was served. Voices rose and fell. Someone told a joke about cranberry sauce. A baby cried. The clatter of forks mixed with the hum of the heater. It was the usual Thanksgiving symphony. Then it happened, right when everyone had settled into conversation. Helen turned toward me with that tone she used when she wanted the room's attention. "Why didn't you come to Vanessa's baby shower?" Her voice sliced through the table. Conversations halted. People stared. Vanessa's smile twitched upward. This time, I didn't shrink. I didn't swallow it. I didn't disappear. I set my fork down carefully, my hands steady. "I had my baby shower the same day," I said. "You were invited." Gasps flickered through the room like sparks catching fire. Helen blinked, offended. "What are you talking about?" "We never received anything." I reached down, lifted the folder, and placed it on the table. "I know," I said quietly. "That's why I brought proof." The room leaned in. I opened the folder and pulled out the first page: delivery logs, times, scans, everything. "Here," I said, sliding it forward. "These are the tracking records for every invitation I sent." Vanessa let out a laugh. "Seriously, you printed shipping labels?" I placed the second stack in front of my mother. "These are the delivery confirmations." I spread the third set across the table, the signatures. 12 of them. Identical. Vanessa's. The room froze solid. My father leaned forward, squinting. Helen's hand flew to her mouth. A relative whispered something that sounded like, "Oh my God." Vanessa shook her head quickly, too quickly. "You're twisting this," she snapped. "Anyone could have signed those." "They didn't," I said softly. I slid the top page directly toward her. "This is you." All 12 times. The color drained from her face. Helen tore her gaze from the signatures to her eldest daughter. "Vanessa," she whispered, "tell me you didn't do this." Vanessa's voice cracked, brittle and sharp. "She's jealous. She always has been. She's trying to ruin my moment." My moment. Not our family, not our relationship, not my pregnancy. Her moment. Something inside me finally snapped, not in anger, but in clarity. I'm not jealous, I said, my voice steady in a way it had never been. I'm tired. I'm tired of pretending I don't notice when you push me out. I'm tired of losing things I send. I'm tired of being told I'm imagining it. I'm tired of disappearing just so you can shine. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was truth settling into every corner of the room. My father rubbed his forehead. Vanessa. Why? She swung her gaze toward him, defensive and shaking. Because she always gets sympathy without trying. She gets to be quiet and fragile, and everyone just falls over themselves to comfort her. I stared at her. That's what you think this is? She didn't answer. But she didn't have to. The room had already answered for her. She shot up from her chair, nearly knocking it over. I don't deserve this, she yelled. Not while I'm pregnant. And then she walked away, pushing through relatives who stepped back like she was made of fire. The door slammed. What remained wasn't chaos. It was quiet, real quiet, not the kind I grew up being stuffed into. People looked at me with something new in their eyes. Not pity, not surprise. Something closer to respect. My father came to stand beside me. I'm sorry, he said. I should have asked more questions. I should have noticed. I nodded. It's okay. Because for once it actually was. My mother didn't speak. She stared down at the signatures like they were ghosts crawling across the page. I gathered the papers, placed them back in the folder, and stood. I think I'm going to head home. A few relatives murmured goodbyes. Some reached out to touch my arm. Helen didn't look up. I stepped outside into the cold night air, my breath fogging the darkness. The stars above looked clearer than usual, sharper. Like someone had wiped the sky clean. As I walked toward my car, I felt something shift inside me, a loosening. A release. People think exposure is revenge. But it isn't. Revenge is loud. This was quiet. This was reclaiming space I never should have lost. This was the first time my family saw me without the shadow of my sister wrapped around me. And maybe they wouldn't change. Maybe some things were too deep-rooted for that, but I had changed. And that was enough. I placed the folder on the passenger seat, turned the key, and drove into the cold, honest night finally. Finally unburdened. If you've ever been erased by the people who were supposed to love you, I hope you know this. You don't stay invisible forever. Not when you decide you're done disappearing. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, remember your voice matters. Subscribe for more stories that uncover the truth no one else will tell.